So how do you find the fractals in reality? Well, before we get into that, we first had to define what a fractal is. A fractal is essentially a pattern which can keep on replicating itself the more and more you zoom in. And so you zoom into one aspect of a picture or something, or even a piece of reality itself. Reality is basically like a vector. And so you keep on scaling into it, and it keeps on replicating more and more of itself, but in further and further detail. And that's essentially what a fractal is. Whether fractals have an exact endpoint of where like the matter stops and it doesn't reproduce itself, doesn't really matter. The main thing is this concept of you can scale into things and keep on showing more and more details of what the thing itself is. And when I look at the state of content, the state of podcasts and things like this, there's this sense of how we touch all these different topics, but there's only certain layers deep that we are able to go into it because honestly, it's kind of hard to just stay organized. For me, I'm always scaling into things very, very deeply, but then I'll just find like, oh, I want to scale into this now, and I'll scale into that. And it's like you build these very narrow tunnels of your reality, and these things can be centered around different topics and such. But for the most part, when you're scaling into something, you're kind of throwing away everything else within it. How I try to find the fractals of reality is I always try to maintain my base position while I'm zooming into things. So it's like you kind of have to keep the whole frame into the picture. You don't want to zoom completely in where you lose focus of everything that's beyond you. You kind of want to maintain your frame, but then utilize the center of your mind to focus into something. So you're keeping the main picture still within your reality. And so that's how you find the fractal. That's how you utilize your mind to kind of scale into things without losing the focus. But a fractal more or less is a function that you can apply over top of something, right? You apply a fractal over top of an image, you scale into it, you can create a new type of effect. And so you can apply these fractals in essence to all of reality. I mean, everything is basically a container. This is a container. Skateboard over here, it's a container. Everything is a container which holds information that you can scale into and see more data. And when I look at, like I said, the state of content, it's essentially these podcasts that go really, really big and global and they're widely talked about. But every topic within it has subtopics which can always be shown in different ways and varying different perspectives and things. And the true state of where things actually exist that are truthful in its nature are always at the end point. It's like where the fractal ends. Now you have everything that's behind it, and that starts to actually like encapsulate the entire picture of the thing. Until you find the end point of where there's no more duplication of the idea and you've created all the angles, then you can actually look back and see, oh, like now I have a full picture. You can turn your lens around essentially and start to see all that it is. And so this is how I try to find the fractals in reality. You just always are thinking, like, what is true? What is not true? And what is true that is not true about that truth? And like you keep on kind of creating a decision tree around your reality about basically everything. But more or less, I think that the more you can just focus on finding what's real and finding what's not real, that's going to automatically sort this functionality into your consciousness to where you'll just kind of do it by default. You'll just start to see the fractals everywhere. And I think a big thing about life in general is about knowing which things to zoom into and which things to not zoom into. Like some things are endless fractal regeneration mechanisms that you'll scale into an idea, you'll just keep on going around in a circle, and there will almost be no endpoint. That's almost like the trap of reality in a lot of ways. There's many topics that are like that. They even say like conspiracy theories, that you're going down a rabbit hole, it never ends. Like for the most part, it's kind of true. And so there always has to be a new conspiracy theory. There always has to be a new thing that you got to figure out. And if you don't know the next thing, then you're somehow in danger or whatever. And so you'll find that the more you awaken to reality, there's actually very few things to scale into. I mean, you harness your ability to scale into things, you harness your ability to find the fractals. But in essence, you have to learn how to utilize that utility in your functionality in a way which actually benefits you. And very few things that you focus on, you'll find are like, oh man, that's like super valuable to know. Most of it's kind of garbage. I mean, the majority of your reality, 80% of your reality is pretty much predetermined. It's pretty general stuff. You walk around, you skate around, you do whatever I do. I mean, it's all pretty natural living. It's nothing like it's a far out cybernetic journey to the universe every single day. And so very few things actually require that deep contemplation, that deep reflective capability. And the majority of your life is just kind of doing your own thing until you have those moments where you need it. And so a lot about life is just conserving your energy in a way where you can utilize your functionality that you're developing in your own time, but you're doing it in a way which is actually towards things that matter and benefit you. So much talk about the war that's going on, this thing's going on, that thing's going on, destruction of this or that paradigm. And see, if you're focusing your attention on any of these things that you don't want, it's cliche, I know, but you'll kind of create more and more of the thing that you don't want. Like, I kind of hate that sort of like mentality. It's very simple. It's like, oh, that's like new age, but like it's kind of serious. If you just focus on what you don't want to see and how you're combating the thing that you don't want to see and how you're part of attacking back the thing that you don't want to see and how it's responding back to you, and you'll just kind of create more and more of that battle within yourself. And I mean, it's the most obvious thing in the world. And I think some of the most obvious things in the world are things that we actually don't recognize at all. It's kind of crazy, man, how the majority of your consciousness, if you just adhere to simple principles and commands, you'd be surprised what that just does for your reality. It's not about this like super ancient, far out, ethereal school in the sky that we all have to collect back into and realize our purpose and our mission. Like, so much of that is true. It has its value. I do it all the time. But man, so much of our human problems just directly relate to just being a human and dealing with human related things. And in a way, it's escapism to kind of try to foster a deeper connection to something that is beyond you, to try to escape from the reality of your actual world. I mean, like, there's sort of a path and a linear progression of how this is sort of like supposed to be done, you know? I don't know, it's kind of strange. So you have to find the fractals that actually matter. You have to find the packages and the containers of reality that actually would benefit you the more you understand the thing itself. Like I said, there's very few things that are like that. I mean, you probably will already naturally adhere to some of those things by default. You'll come in with your sole purpose and you'll find things like, oh man, I should know about this or whatever, and it would really help me if I did, that kind of stuff. But man, for the most part, if you just focus on the things that actually matter and you realize what matters, then I think you'll actually find what you need to find in reality. Reality itself, look around. Like, how does any of this work? You know, the trees back there, how you're breathing automatically, your nervous system, how we're processing reality, our vision, our brain, the interconnectedness of all of it. I mean, it's so deeply mysterious. It's like we're immersed already within a spatial grid of light particles, and we're just kind of like, you know, trying to figure our life mission out when we're so deeply embedded into the game of reality that we're trying to ponder things that maybe we won't even ever understand because you're a part of it, which is kind of means you'd have to be away from it to understand it, you know? So a lot of reality is super deeply strange and they'll never figure it out fully. And so I guess my use case for all of this is just focus on the things that actually matter, scale into things that actually benefit you. And if you just do that, then you'll be fine. Because you'll realize sooner or later that the more you scale into things that perhaps don't matter, you'll just kind of create more confusion and more side missions and side quests and things that you're like supposed to karmically redo for yourself for some reason, which you don't even understand, but you feel like you do. I mean, reality is like so much about also knowing what things to feel and what things not to feel. You know, like, what do I want to feel right now? Like, ever thought that you can choose to just feel something you can choose to feel? You can choose your feelings. You can select your belief systems. You can select the frame of reality and scale into it to whatever degree and level you want to. And it can keep on going until you find the right position to rest at for a while. You can gather more things into your frame and build your own little internal world. I mean, that's like literally what we're doing in reality. We're always building our world off the containers of perception that is all around us. So I hope that helps. You know, find the fractals in your reality. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you start thinking that direction, perhaps you will develop it.